So, vanakkam to all. So actually, I want to propose some change in our class. So, what is the plan is every week after week, we are having 5 days this session, right? So, what we can do is the Monday, we can have the Purna Yoga. And the Friday or Thursday, any of another day, we will have the Gayatri Buddha Vinyan. So we will cover 4 classes, but 1 week become totally free. Okay, so it's easy to plan ourselves also because I have a trips and all, then I will plan those outer because this time is falling on my noon time, okay, so 2:30. So I have some other commitment, so I can plan like that. So that is the way I want to do. Let's see how it is. So therefore, in the month, only 2 weeks we have the 5 days commitment. Other alternative weeks we will be free, right? So we can do our work and also I think. So that's the idea. So just propose. Then today we can have a what do you call, and also that also I prefer maybe 15 minutes we can take for every day also 10 or 15 minutes any doubts. Okay, so therefore it will become a comprehensive learning. The schedule 2:30 to 3:30. Then sadhana will finish on 3:15. So then we will have 15 minutes more also. Then if any sadhaka want to have a question or something, we can discuss. So the 2 weeks intense and 2 week off. That's the model we want to go. So Gil, you write down to everyone. Then it will be time efficient. Okay, so when we have more time than the previous classes. So 5 full day, 1 hour, 5 hours, 10 hours. We are per month. We are completing. So that is the idea. And also another benefit after this sadhana, we are discussing something is actually, so today we are going to discuss the Purna Yoga. The Purna Yoga, Sri Aurobindo says, the descent of the Devi. Okay, so that is what we are practicing in this Gayatri Sadhana. Okay, so after the descent of her, if we discuss the higher things or any yogic secret and all, it will be more clear than the general discussions. So that is also one of the idea behind this proposal. After the sadhana, we are having this class. Okay, so the class. So people who can't participate regularly, yeah, they can only come to the class and at least participate in that day session, right? Even weekly, monthly, maybe two times or 4 times. So then it will be helping you. That is one. So another plan, maybe it's not my plan, maybe Devi's plan. So the Brazil is getting the sadhakas, like now we are doing this higher Vijnanamaya Kosha sadhana. At least few people, like 10 or 20 people, doing and all. So maybe I feel end of this sadhana, or maybe when we completing, we will have the Pedam, Agastya Pedam in the Brazil. Okay, so I'm working on to send a small statue for the statue of the Agastya to the Brazil for you all. Hopefully, maybe when we are finishing this sadhana 100 days, it will become to the materializing. Okay, so those are the things I want to share with the group, right? So Gil will translate that into the in Portuguese at the last. So today, Sri Aurobindo's comparison of the Purna Yoga with the different knowledge and the yogic philosophies. First, we saw about the Western intellectual philosophical tradition and how it is. So then we move to the Advaita, Shankara Advaita, or the Mayavad Advaita, or Aurobindo say it is as an illusionist Advaita. Then Yoga of Gita, we compared, and go Yoga of Gita, and the Tantric tradition in the last discussion. So now he want to compare the Purna Yoga with the Vaishnava Bhakti. So Bhakti tradition. So Vaishnava Bhakti mean very familiar to the Western students. It's already the Hare Krishna, Hare Rama movement and all. So this is a Vaishnava Bhakti. So actually the Vaishnava Bhakti also from the Bengal. Okay, where this Sri Aurobindo comes or where the Tantric traditions comes. So the human vital conscious have moved always between these two poles, the ordinary vital life, which cannot satisfy, and the recoil from it to the ascetic solution. India has gone fully through that seesaw. Europe is beginning once more after full trial to feel the failure of this more vital egoistic life. Okay, so how he want a human conscious when we take the human around the world. Okay, so all human have the consciousness. So this human consciousness for Indian perspective, it had a what you call ordinary vital life with the emotion and all. On other side, if you see the Western tradition, they are very rational. It moved the human to the sort of a egoistic, right? Egoistic. Another one is too much emotion. So you can see. So when you talk to the common Indian common person, so they always take everything as emotional, right? And you cannot speak rationally and all. But if you take other side, it is more so egoistic and without any emotional things and all. So the traditional yogas to which you appeal are founded upon the movement between these two poles. Okay, so if you take the yogic traditions, there are two types. One is rational, right? Another one is the emotional. Okay, emotional. So, or rational push you to the egoistic behavior. The emotional will push you to the weaken your vital. Okay, so you become so this thing. So this is the general idea he's telling. One side as Shankara and Buddha is most go, if not by the same road. The Shankara and Buddha are not in the same road, but the same direction. Okay, so you understand they both are not same, but they focus the Vedanta also talking about intellectualism and the rational and analysis and all. So Buddha also saying the same way, right? So other direction, other one is the Vaishnava and the Tantric lines. Okay, so he's comparing um, Shankara and the Buddha as a rational people, rational. So you now you can understand, right? The Vedantic teachings and the Buddhism are more famous because it can convince a rational mind. Okay, so on other sides, the tantric line and the Bhakti tradition, Vaishnava Bhakti, both are is in the emotional aspect. Okay. And where did these line end? They fell back to the other pole or a vital invasion upon corruption and the loss of their spirit. At the present day, the general movement is toward an attempt to reconciliation. And you have alluded sometime to some of the protagonistic of this attempt and asked me my opinion about them. You are being unfavorable. But these men are not more, if there is anything wrong with them, it can only be because they are unable to resist the magnetic pull of these low poles of egoistic vital desire nature. So if you take, let's say, the both aspects, you have the prana. Okay, you have to understand when you are becoming so emotional, right? So emotional, what is happening is you are over pumping the prana. Okay, prana. Let's say you cried a lot, okay, or you anger a lot. So then you are pumping your prana more than you require. Okay, more than you require. So now the system is expanded. All the time, the prana is some sort of a drug. Okay, so it's similar to the drinking alcohol. Okay, so if you take right now, it's going and going and going, and beyond your capacity, so you feel exhausted, but still your mind will seek. Okay, seek. So that is the problem in the bhakti and the tantric tradition when you try to use the emotions. Okay, so your sexual lust or your love or your compassion, whatever. So you are using the vital, then that can expand more than your capacity, then it can create the recoil effect also. So when your prana is go down because of your disease or because of your other activities, so you will be feeling sucked out, like no, you lost your some energy. Okay, energy. So this is the danger of the bhakti and the tantric tradition. So on the other side, through your rational process, you are condensing your prana to be egoistic. Okay, so you always talk rationally. You never think about any other person, or sometimes you may focusing on your aims and all. That also kind of a misuse. You are more concentrating your prana into one of the objective. So that also will create a disease for you. It's not. So then the yoga definition, yeah, we know the Krishna say in the Gita, yoga muchyate sama uchyate, right? So yoga is a balance of life, right? So when you are focusing these two, the Buddha's and the Shankara's approach, you are more focusing and concentrating your prana, right? Vital. So Aurobindo says it as a vital. When you practice the bhakti or tantric, you are using more emotion. That also can create the imbalance in you. Okay. So now you understand what he's going to argue. So Purna Yoga is not using these in extreme. Okay, extreme. So you use the bhakti to surrender to the mother, but it is not it's not too much of emotion and exhausting. Okay, you are surrendering with the rational at the same time with the balance without exhausting your prana. Okay, so this is the idea. He's saying he's taking the bhakti and the tantric tradition to the Purna Yoga, but it not in the old way of the definition. Okay, so it is not for the over enjoyment of the prana. Okay, so the problem, if you give a more pleasure or expanded more than your capacity, then every time your prana will push, even though you know very clearly. So why that is a very important thing you have to understand. So you may be mentally or in mind level, you are very pure and clean. Okay, you know this is wrong. Okay, this is wrong. But why you are doing some wrong thing or some the unwanted thing is because you have done this earlier. Therefore, that level prana is extended. So now the prana, you need more prana. So that's why you are more focusing on your desire. You understand? It's a different explanation Sri Aurobindo gave. So the Patanjali say all your habits are problem of your samskaras. Okay, samskaras. But Aurobindo says, even though the samskara, because of your enjoyed too much, then your prana is expanded. So therefore, you have that pranic path to fill. You understand? Let's say it's like this: the water is going right. It turned into some other place. Okay, and it created the vacuum there, or the lower like a pond. Now you withdraw the water. Okay, water. But next time when you pour the water, automatically it will go there because already that path is created in your vital sheet. Okay, so this is very important concept when you're trans. For example, if you push your prana to enjoy something, okay, that will create a sort of a path in your subtle body. And even though now mentally you don't want to do, but when you open up the prana, it will go there. Okay, so that is the difficult aspect on the vital sheet. Okay, so therefore he's warning the bhakti or using emotions in the tantra and the too much of concentrating intellectuality. So these all will create the even though you mentally you don't want to do, automatically it will flow. Okay, it will flow. So it's something like this. If you have a lower land, you have created the lower land because of the rain and all. Next time, if you want or not, if rain falls, the water will go there. Okay. In the same way, if you expand your desires and the emotions, okay, through the bhakti or any other things, then this problem you will face. Okay. So, but it is essential for the transformation. So without receiving, so without emotion, you cannot connect to the any person, connect to the divine. You can't connect. So, but what Sri Aurobindo says in the Purna Yoga, you have to deal with that with very in a balanced way. Okay, not to too much become emotion and say I'm bhakti and I am dedicated to the God and all, but you have to mind because you are focusing on the transformation of your emotion in the body. Okay. So this is a small part of the today discussion, right? The Sri Aurobindo's aspect the bhakti and using emotions in the sadhana. Hopefully, after the translation, we can discuss if any questions on this. Okay.
Bom dia. Então, primeiro o Sumané ele iniciou falando, né, que ele quer organizar o nosso estudo agora, fazer assim, porque ele está fazendo a sadhana, né, semana sim, semana não, 5 dias seguidos, né. Então, para ele conseguir se organizar, como é um horário para ele no meio da tarde, para na semana que ele for fazer a sadhana, a gente tem aula. Então ele deu a ideia de fazer segunda e terça, ou segunda e sexta, enfim, ele vai definir o dia ainda, mas a princípio mantém a aula de segunda. E também todos os dias depois da sadhana, mesmo os dias que a gente não tiver aula, a gente pode fazer perguntas, ter uns 15 minutos ali para fazer pergunta. Então, na verdade, a gente vai ampliar o tempo com ele, né, com essa sadhana que a gente está fazendo. E também ele considera que fazer a sadhana e o estudo na sequência é mais propício, né? Então, por exemplo, a gente está estudando o Purna Yoga de Sri Aurobindo, né? Então, Sri Aurobindo fala que o conhecimento é a descendência da Devi, né? A Devi descendo até nós. Então, essa sadhana que a gente faz é exatamente isso, né? A gente invocando a Devi para que ela preencha o nosso corpo, né? Forme o Vijnana Maya Kosha. Então, que ele considera muito bom a gente fazer o estudo depois dessa sadhana. Então, a gente está estudando, né, e depois, a ideia dele é depois que completar esse ciclo dos 108 dias, né, dessa sadhana, a gente instalar aqui no Brasil um Pitam do Agastya. Então ele está fazendo uma estátua, né? Ele está fazendo com os mantras dentro ali da tradição. E ele vai mandar para a gente essa estátua para a gente instalar em algum lugar aqui no Brasil. Então ele inclusive me pediu há uns dias para ir sentindo um lugar que a gente possa fazer isso. E então para a gente firmar, né, essa tradição aqui com esse grupo de pessoas que já estão praticando, né? E um passo desse processo de expansão dessa tradição. Então a gente está estudando o Purna Yoga de Sri Aurobindo, né? E ele está comparando o sistema do Sri Aurobindo de Purna Yoga com outros sistemas, né? Então a gente viu com o sistema filosófico ocidental, a gente viu o Advaita de Shankaracharya, a gente fez a comparação com o Yoga Gita, né? Do Bhagavad Gita, com sistemas tântricos, né? Então, e aí também o sistema Vaishnava Bhakti, né? Que é muito conhecido, que são dos Hare Krishnas, inclusive que vem de Bengal, da região de Bengal, da Índia, que também é de onde vem Sri Aurobindo e também de onde vem algumas tradições tântricas. Então, Sri Aurobindo faz ele compara, né, faz esses dois extremos, né, que existe um aspecto do conhecimento que ele é muito focado numa vida ordinária, numa razão, né, num aspecto muito ascético da vida. E tem outro aspecto que é de uma dimensão e que acaba exacerbando um aspecto muito egóico. E tem um outro aspecto, né, num outro extremo ele coloca, que é um aspecto muito emocional, que valoriza e trabalha muito a emoção, a devoção, a expansão da energia. Então, dentro das tradições iógicas, né, Sri Aurobindo está dizendo que vai ter sempre uma tradição que tende a ser mais racional, como, por exemplo, a Shankara, Advaita, né, e Buda, que são aspectos mais que tendem a ser mais racionais, e de um outro lado esses aspectos, essas práticas que são mais devocionais, como o Yoga de Gita e também mais emocionais, como por exemplo os sistemas tântricos. Então, em ambos os aspectos, né, em ambos os yogas, a gente sempre está lidando com o prana. Então, quando a pessoa faz uma prática que exacerba os aspectos emocionais, ela tende a bombear muito esse prana. Então ela ativa muito a emoção, isso faz com que ela chore, isso faz com que as sensações do corpo fluam. Então isso gera uma expansão do prana. E muitas vezes essa expansão, esse sistema do prana se expande e é como se em um dado momento a pessoa fosse além da capacidade da pessoa e aí isso tende a drenar, né? E a pessoa tende a cair, a adoecer, a não sustentar aquilo. Então, por exemplo, também nos sistemas tântricos, né? A pessoa expande a energia dela, isso exacerba aspectos que a pessoa possa carregar da sexualidade dela, também pode gerar esse excesso de devoção, e isso faz com que essa energia possa se perder também. E nos aspectos, nos sistemas mais racionais, que também fazem essa mobilização do prana, a pessoa tende a ficar mais egóica, né? Então ela pode se focar excessivamente nos objetivos dela, ela perder a capacidade de pensar em outras pessoas. Então ela acaba mantendo uma estrutura mais rígida, mais egóica. Então, no Bhagavad Gita de Sri Krishna, né, ele diz que yoga é o equilíbrio da vida. Então, tanto o sistema, né, então Sri Aurobindo considera, né, no Purna Yoga, que tanto o sistema de Buda, de Shankaracharya, que é um sistema racional, tem os seus aspectos. Nos sistemas tântricos e mais devocionais também tem seus aspectos. Então, o ideal é a pessoa conseguir equilibrar isso. Então, ela conseguir manter esse equilíbrio para que ela consiga sustentar o prana. Então, ele dá um exemplo, né, em relação a um desequilíbrio disso. Então, por exemplo, às vezes a pessoa tem uma clareza mental, ela tem até uma pureza mental. Só que quando ela começa a fazer essas práticas, ela mesmo assim, ela não consegue, ela comete erros. Então, aqueles mesmos erros que ela sabe que não são bons, ela tem uma clareza daquilo, mas a prática, ela faz a prática e ela acaba cometendo aqueles erros. Então ele explica, né, que é como se fosse um sistema hidráulico de águas. Então a pessoa, a água direciona para um novo lugar, através das práticas, da devoção, né, ele dá esse exemplo. Mas aquele lugar por onde a água circulava antes, né, então excesso de prazeres, de coisas que a pessoa desfrutava antes, mas que tem um aspecto, uma natureza inferior, né, aqueles caminhos estão lá. E quando aquele fluxo de água cresce, naturalmente ela circula por aqueles mesmos caminhos. Então é como se fosse assim, tem uma encosta e a água tende a sempre descer para aqueles lugares mais baixos. Então a pessoa acaba repetindo aqueles padrões. Então por isso que a pessoa precisa equilibrar os aspectos racionais e devocionais. Né? Então é isso que Sri Aurobindo fala, né? Que isso também faz parte, que essa dinâmica, né, desse movimento, das águas, da emoção, dessas ativações, também fazem parte desse processo de purificação, de transformação. E quando a pessoa equilibra essa parte emocional com essa parte racional, ela consegue se focar na autotransformação, né? Que o objetivo é sempre esse de autotransformação. Então é isso.
Okay, so any questions?
Alguma pergunta? Sumana,
Yeah.
when you say to balance the rational with the devotional, I think the emotional aspect I can understand, like the bhakti, the puja, the practice that expand the energy. But the rational, it's the study of like a cosmology, it's the study of the how the mind works, how is the ego. This is what you call rational.
Okay, so how you will understand, we have two aspects, right? So if you want to go deeper understanding, okay, penetrate, okay, of the knowledge and all, so you use the focus or dharana in our yogic language, or we go through the ekakra, okay, so gakra dharana. So this called as a in our general term we call it as a rational. So you focus and go deep, okay. But if you want to experience, you have to expand. Okay. Then you use the emotion. Okay, emotion. So the thing is, let's say the river, okay. So if river want to go long, right? Long, so it have to narrow and increase the force. So it becomes destructive. You can understand, right? So the when river's path is narrow and start to focus, that energy will be created and it can go for 1,000 kilometers, 500 kilometers, but it will be destructive. You have to understand it won't go like a smooth. It will destroy the whole path and go. Okay. So when you start to concentrate or use the rational mind, that's what happening to you, right? So that's why you're getting stress. Okay, so when you start to focus something, so you let. But on the other side, if river become wider, okay, wider, it will start to stagnate like a pond or the pool. Okay, pool. Then also you have a problem that because of the stagnation, there is no life. It become dirt. Okay, so this is what Aurobindo is trying to explain in our sadhana. To become receptive, you become wider and all. Then at the same time, you become emotionally addicted also. You become like right. You don't do the job, and you believe God will everything God will do, right? Or you will start to create some false beliefs. But at the meantime, when you start to understand, try to understand and focus, you will start to channel your mind. Then you will penetrate. At the meantime, it's become a disastrous force. Okay, so you must know this. So that's what Aurobindo's point. These two are not bad. You must know when and where to use this. Use this. For example, when you let's say when you sit on this sadhana, you have to emotionally open and receive the energy. Okay. So when you start to recite the mantra, you have to focus and penetrate into the divine and try to get it. Okay. But only you are focusing, but you are not receiving in the sense, then you become weak. That's why this phenomenon you can experience in your sadhana. Okay. First, you go through the awareness and open up your body and system. Now you start to concentrate. At the end of the sadhana, you feel so energetic and so happy and so blissful. Because of your concentration, you drag the energy and filled up you. Okay. But you have not to open up emotionally, but just doing the japa, you'll get headache. Okay. So this is the idea. Sri Aurobindo say, okay, that's why in the whole tantric process, there are part you have to use the concentration. There are part you have to be open. It need to be balanced. You understand? In your japa, you have to focus. At the same time, if you focus, before the focus, you have to open up your system, because when you are focusing, that energy will come. That prana will come. That prana need to be filled. If it is not filled properly only, you will get the pain in the body and you are getting the headache and all. So this is what he want to say. The Purna Yoga idea is dragging the divine and bringing inside and transforming it. But if you are too much open, mean they're unable to fill. Okay, so it's like a whole pot, like something. But if you are too much focusing, that there also it become a struggle, because if you start to focus, you will get the headache, pain, all the diseases. So in the Purna Yoga, you have to understand this phenomenon because these two, you are dragging and saving the prana. That is the part we are not discussing. Understand? We always say, think mind is focusing. Okay? That is not true. If you focus your mind, then the thing is who is pushing the mind? That prana. Okay, the prana. So if you open up emotionally, you think, all right, my mind is open and relaxed. No, you are actually feeling the prana. Okay, prana. So that's why he say it as a vital, the change in the vital. Another part, when you, let's say, one day you are doing higher japa, 1008. Okay, 1008. So next day you are not doing. Next day you are doing 108. Okay, now you are confusing your pranic sheet. When you are doing 100,008, you are getting 1000 unit of prana. Okay. Next day, then you have given the experience to the 1000 unit. Okay, you have expanded the balloon to the 1000 unit. Then suddenly you are narrowing 0. Okay, 0. The next day only you are blooming 100. So now your system will get confused. Okay, you have eaten a lot, then next day starving, then next day little eating, and then all the same. So you don't grow properly. So this is another principle why you need to do the sadhana, the same amount for the long time. Let's say every day you are doing 100 and 100, you will get the stable pranic development. Okay, so yeah, it become permanent when you do 6 months, 108. Now your pranic sheet have the permanent savings of the 100 units of the prana. Okay, just for understanding. Okay, so these are the principles behind the sadhana.
Thank you. Então eu perguntei para ele, né, como que seria isso, né? Porque a parte da devoção, da emoção, para mim estava bem claro, né, que é essa parte das práticas, no sentido assim do bhakti, da devoção, né, das práticas que expandem a energia, mas como seria o equilíbrio racional? E aí eu perguntei, é o estudo racional da cosmologia, do sistema? E ele diz o seguinte, né, que na verdade não é isso não é esse ponto, né? Então é assim, para a gente penetrar no conhecimento, né, a gente precisa de ekagraha, né, concentração, e dharana, né, sustentação da concentração. Então a gente cria esse foco, né, essa concentração, e isso faz com que a gente possa penetrar, ir fundo, né? Então isso seria o aspecto racional do excesso de concentração. E num outro aspecto, né, a gente quer experienciar aquilo. Então a gente quer receber, experienciar isso, a gente precisa expandir o nosso sistema, a nossa emoção. Então ele fez uma analogia, né? Então é como um rio. Para o rio ir longe, ele precisa se estreitar, ele fica mais estreito, ele vai mais longe. Isso faz com que a água ganhe intensidade, que ela vai destruindo as coisas no caminho. Isso é a mente racional, que se foca excessivamente. Agora, quando esse rio alarga, ele estagna. Então, alargar é ele estar mais receptivo, né? Ele se alarga, ele fica mais receptivo, mas isso pode fazer com que ele estagne. Então, tem esses dois aspectos, né? Então a pessoa pode excessivamente ficar concentrada ou excessivamente se alargar, né? Então ela precisa equilibrar isso. Então a gente precisa observar isso na nossa sadhana. Então, por exemplo, se a gente vai fazer o mantra, né? A prática do mantra, a gente precisa de um foco, de uma concentração. Então a gente começa a fazer essa concentração, a gente começa a penetrar, a entrar, né, digamos, no divino, em Deus. Depois a gente precisa se abrir para receber isso, né? Então a gente precisa o tempo todo dentro da sadhana estar equilibrando isso, né? Então a gente se concentra, se foca e mantém a abertura. Então, por exemplo, se a pessoa faz o japa repetidamente, de forma muito concentrada, mas ela não cria esse estado de receptividade, ela vai tender a sentir dor de cabeça, sentir dores no corpo, né? E ao mesmo tempo, se a pessoa fica num estado muito receptivo, muito emocional, muito aberto, sem a concentração, ela tende a estagnar. Então, o Purna Yoga, né, ele foca em trazer esse equilíbrio. Então, quando a gente penetra a mente, quem leva a nossa, quem empurra a mente é o prana. Então, a gente está direcionando o prana. Então, a gente também precisa manter um estado receptivo para que a gente também receba o prana. E por isso que é importante a regularidade do japa, do número de repetições. Então, por exemplo, se a pessoa faz um dia 1008 repetições, aí no dia seguinte ela não faz, no outro dia ela faz 108. Então, o sistema dela não consegue entender a dimensão do prana. Então, é como um balão. A pessoa enche esse balão com 1008 repetições, aí depois ela faz um pouco. Então, esse sistema ele não consegue se estabilizar. Então, quando a pessoa, é como se a pessoa comesse muito, depois ela fica sem comer. Então, ela cria uma necessidade e depois ela não sustenta aquilo. Então, isso não vai gerar uma boa nutrição. Por isso, a importância de fazer uma repetição regular daquele número de repetições do mantra durante um período mais longo para estabilizar o sistema, né, de prana.
Okay. Okay. So any other questions? So this Friday we will Friday or Thursday we will have the Gayatri Gupta Vijnana, right? Okay, so please.
Então, ou na quinta ou na sexta, a gente vai ter o Gayatri Gupta Vignam.
Okay, so shall we conclude? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Sumana.
Tomorrow 2:30 we will meet.
Thank you.